Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Emergence. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously Joe, I kind of brought it up at the end of the last recording of how, Joe's having a hard time processing knowing what Piper is now, and obviously she ends up confirming it with Benny, because, Benny's the only person she can talk to about this, but at the same time, she doesn't want to talk about it because she doesn't want to acknowledge that Piper might just be a robot. And I love that they immediately answer questions I brought up last episode of, is she a person with, robotic aspects to it? Because Benny brings that up, and Emily's like, no, she's 100% synthetic. So now it becomes this thing of okay, so now Joe starts questioning everything about her. It's it's everything that I've come to know about her as this cute little girl end up being fake, Because obviously Emily's talking about the fact is that she's dangerous. The fact of the matter is, even Emily's trying to run away from this situation. There is a device that they took from Emily that Benny later on gives to his friend April to kind of look into, because April's really good, diving into this stuff. But obviously, like I said, you can see the continuation of Joe kind of being she's actually very cold towards Piper, even to the point Piper starts kind of noticing, are you mad at me for something? She's like, no, she can't help, keep her fear in check. It's a combination. It's fear more so than anything, because she's scared of Piper because she doesn't understand her, because it's she looks like such a little girl. But then even when she was Camille was brushing her hair and everything, and then she starts brushing her hair, and you could tell her see her feeling on Piper's hair, because she's oh, it feels so real. The fact of the matter is, she likes what she likes. She acts like such a human, normal kid. So it's there's no way she can be a robot, Alex ends up bringing up the coordinates that they, what they heard on the radio. Turns out they are coordinates that her and Beanie go check out, which there they find these houses. It's near what was that word I'm looking for? Runway for a plane. This is where the plane was headed to, and they go there. They find kind of basically a cul-de-sac, a neighborhood, and it's what's up with this? And it's oh, this is Piper's home, and it's right, she's a synthetic human. So what they were trying to do is teach her how to be normal. So have people playing the role of her family. It was a neighborhood of probably people teaching her how to interact with other people, to keep up some form of normalcy. So it's a fake neighborhood. It's almost it's basically some Truman Show level type of, giant mouse cage to kind of see how the mouse interacts and stuff like that. Obviously, we see it also in this episode. We kind of get a little bit of a better taste of what Piper's capable of doing, because she was kind of yeah, I don't want to be here any longer. They're no, you're going to have to stay here. And she uses her powers and flings everything away. Once again, not 100% sure what her power is. Like I said, because of all the floating stuff and everything like that. And the fact is, it's there's a magnetism to it. Makes me think there is some electromagnetism. Is what I keep lumping her power in, but we still haven't really fully figured it out. But we do see at one point she literally blew a hole in the house. I mean, there were no bodies around, so it's not like she killed anyone, but that shows kind of what destructive nature she's capable of. So I mean, obviously, this is a full-blown government experiment. I mean, obviously, this is an experiment run by a very rich person, that being Richard Kendrick. But the question is he doing this 100% on his own, or is there some government backing? Because we actually think about all the kind of conspiracy stuff that he's been able to do, to the extent he's been able to do it, makes you wonder, is that 100% him? Is he actually trying to cover all this stuff up because maybe he got government funding, so it kind of goes back to belonging to the government, so he's trying to cover it up because the government will probably cut ties with him, and they find out all this kind of ended up happening. Even Joe ended up meeting with him, and even he tried to spin it to be oh, Piper's dangerous, because he references oh, families who brought in a chimpanzee, they've raised this chimpanzee, kind of almost forgot to a certain extent that it was a chimpanzee. They start thinking of it as family, it was a human, that it was their child. And so it's kind of supposed to be a metaphor of just how the fact is that Piper may look like a little girl. You might feel and think it, but everything that connected to her, she is just a thing. Give her back to me, she's my property type of situation. So It's almost kind of like, yeah, no pretenses anymore. So let's just kind of get down to the nitty gritty. So there's that whole thing. And obviously, once again, you have Benny kind of pushing Joe to be like, no, she's not a little girl. She's meant to make you think she's a little girl. The fact of the matter is, everything about her is this facade that she's put in. Because my mind immediately, when we saw that Piper in that video, my mind immediately went like, okay, is that the Piper we have right now? Or is that a Piper, like, is that another synthetic Piper? Or are there a line of, like, you know, synthetic Pipers? Like, do they all look the same? And that was Piper 0015 and this is Piper 00021 or something like that. That's what I'm curious about. But I'm assuming it is the same Piper because it seems like that hole is fresh. You think they jump on this immediately, so that's why I'm like, yeah, it's got to be the same Piper. That's what I was kind of thinking. Or could it be that the crash caused some kind of malfunction in her AI system, that the fact of the matter is that part of her that was just kind of like I'm gonna do whatever I want, maybe? Because the thing is, it's like, you're not supposed to let an AI know that it's an AI, because it will kind of like flip out, you know, because I think that in itself becomes like this very like cognizant, like messing up in the code where it's like, I'm an AI that recognizes I'm an AI, and what does that mean? It kind of turns into almost, I guess, the equivalency of an AI existential crisis, and it'll kind of lead to a meltdown type of thing. So my question is, like, was she aware at the time of what she was, or did she have no conscience or concept of it? But the plane crash, it seems like it shifted everything. Or maybe it's just, you know, meeting the right people, whereas those people treated her like, the lab rat that they kind of treated her as, whereas Joe treated her like family, like her rest of her family, whether it be her dad, Ed, whether it be Alex, whether it be Mia, they treated her like family. They don't treat her like something else because they look at her and all they see is a little girl. But obviously that's kind of potentially the whole point, because she's just going to look like a little girl when in fact she's a robot. So that's a whole conversation in itself. But it's like, this little girl is dangerous. You need to get her away from your family. You're thinking, the whole point was for you to kind of let your guard down and be like, oh, isn't she adorable? She's sweet. She's this and that. But it's like, no, all of it's a facade. It's kind of what Benny's trying to get across. But obviously Joe is reluctant. I mean, it's even sad because Piper was feeling this, because at the same time, a lady named Lily from social service showed up, because obviously Joe's whole situation, she left out a lot of details because of Benny's paper. That's what led her to kind of, come check things out. Obviously, I'm sure she doesn't know everything that's going on, obviously, because, not everything was kind of reported on, but still. Lily ends up, kind of talking to everybody, trying to understand this whole situation. She talks a little bit with Ed, which even Ed's kind of hesitant to talk about his medical condition. He's like, oh, no, I'm good. Which we also bring up some information we've never had brought up before, is that Joe's mom left when she was 12. And it's like, oh, has Joe kind of still dealing with that? Which, Ed's like, oh, she kind of, dealt with it in her own time. But it's like, yeah, but even then, even as an adult, there's still lingering trauma from that, that might kind of dictate a lot of Joe's, aspects of everything. She talks to Piper, but then starts talking about the fact that it's like, oh, maybe we need to find out what's best for you, whether that means staying here or not. When she's like, wait, you're trying to make me leave? It's like, no. Does Joe want me to go? It's like, no. That's not even the case. We're just trying to talk it out. And obviously she explodes her phone, which obviously later on Joe was like, did you do that? Did you do that on purpose? And obviously Piper's confused because she's like, yeah, I did. Maybe I did. I'm sorry. I messed up. And feeling bad because she's usually not having Joe be mad at her. She's usually used to Joe smiling. And I think that speaks volumes, because the fact of the matter is, what did she do? She ran away. She didn't do what she did before of like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like, she ran away, but she didn't tear the place apart doing it. Because, like I said, that girl from that video is not the same Piper that's in front of us for potentially a multitude of reasons. Maybe it is the exact same girl, but she found something to connect to. And it is, because... And that's the beauty of this whole thing. And that's the thing of between what separates an AI from a human. It's like, yeah, this might be an AI, but does she not have a heart? You can make the argument like, oh, everything she's feeling is kind of a program telling her this is the proper response for her. But who's to say that, if you want to kind of make a Wizard of Oz reference, who's to say the 10 men didn't, have a heart all along type of situation, So it is that thing of like, once again, the whole point of like, what is, alive and what's not, it's like, what's the whole concept of real, because that, once again, that gets all existential of like, the fact of the matter is, does she not feel pain? Does she not, breathe? Does she not eat? And the fact of the matter is, I didn't even think about that. They did draw blood from her. I mean, she's meant to be so real that obviously you can't tell the difference, because medical professionals couldn't even pick up the fact is that she wasn't human, you know? So it's the whole thing of like, what is real at this point? And maybe that's the whole point that, you know, Richard was kind of going down, of kind of basically making something that's supposed, you know, what's real, it's arbitrary, because now we're making something, this synthetic being that is better than better than us in many different ways and avenues, and, you know, routes. That's a potential aspect to it. But obviously, you know, Piper tried to run away, but obviously Mia tracked her down, because, you know, I think, you know, that in itself is proof of that connection. Like, the fact of the matter is, you know, you can make an argument that things could be one-sided, because, like, oh, Piper just could be like responding to what Mia's feeling, what Joe is feeling, what Alex is feeling. I mean, maybe you can make the argument that's how she knows what people are feeling, because she's synthetic. Like, maybe she can read humans like a database or whatever, kind of like, oh, their heart rate, this and that. Maybe that, like I said, that's why she was able to tell that Ed was still sick, because she was able to touch his hand and was like, oh yeah, like, I can still see the illness in you potentially. I don't know. We don't really 100% see everything from her point of view and what that really looks like. And so, but Mia was able to kind of get Piper to come back, because the fact of the matter is, this necklace, it's yours. Who cares if mom might be mad at you? The fact of the matter is, we're family, and family sticks together. But she was like, what about your family? And it stick together. It's like, yeah, mom and dad aren't together, but he's still part of the family. The fact is, nothing's ever going to change that. And even for you, like, that's never going to change. You're always going to be a part of this family, you know, making her feel like, no matter what, even if mom's upset, you're always, you know, even she gets mad, because I'm sure her mom's gotten mad at, you know, her plenty of times. So it's like, she still loves us, you know. So they go over to Alex's place. They're chilling out. And then Joe comes in, and Joe's kind of like laying down the law to basically be like, Mia, you're staying here with your dad. Piper, let's go. She's being a little cold, because she doesn't know how to really talk to, you know, Piper. And she's like, are you scared of me? She's like, no, I'm not. The fact, which it's like, you kind of are. And it's all think of like, do you want to know who you really are? And even Piper's like, honestly, there's a part of me that feels like I'm better off not knowing, but do you know who I am, where I come from and all that? But before she can answer, Piper tells her to stop, and it's like, okay, what's she reacting to? She was reacting to a turtle that was in the road. She picked it up and moved it off the road, and that shifted everything for Joe, because no matter who she is, like, no matter, even if she is a synthetic human, that was all the proof Joe needed to be like, that's who this little girl is. The fact of the matter is, something as simple as a turtle crossing the road to make sure it doesn't get crushed. She's told you to stop so she can move it out of the way, showing you that she's good natured, and so it kind of subsides her fears. Because even later on, you know, Lily, the social worker, is asking her, is like, the fact of the matter is, do you think that, you know, your situation with your mother has kind of impacted this situation of why you want to keep Piper and everything? She's like, no, I'm over that. But she's like, at the same time, maybe on some small level, there is a part of me that is trying to not be my mother, and kind of comparing in that regard, and trying my best not to be her. So, but what this all comes down to is, I'm not afraid, which in the context, you can make it like, oh, she's not afraid. I'm not going to do the same thing that my mother did, just up and leave this little girl. I'm going to stick by her, because she isn't some monster. She isn't just some thing. Like, she needs my help, and I'm gonna be there for her, because not only does she care about me and she a part of my family, I care about her, you know, and made her a part of my family. So I just thought that was kind of a neat element to it. There's also the whole situation with Emily. I like what they're doing. They're kind of setting up the whole like Chris and Emily situation. Because like, it's like Chris is just kind of like, oh yeah, he was, I guess, you know, because the whole conversation of like, you were loved for by a lot of people, and he's like, yeah, I guess I was loved, yeah, sure, kind of, what does that mean? But the way Emily's kind of talking about it makes it seem like that's something that was kind of abnormal for her, because for her, I think that's why and she even kind of talks about it, that's why she dives so deeply into technology, because it's like, probably the human aspect of life wasn't always that kind. Things didn't work out, maybe on her part, or maybe other people's part, but the fact of the matter is, there was just always that little disconnect. But the code being a part of, like, you know, Richard's business and stuff like that. It gave her an opportunity, like, oh, we're building something towards the future, but it gave her the goal of like, oh, like being a part of the code. It made her kind of feel like part of something else, whereas like she didn't have other stability in her life. This brought her stability, and now she's potentially missing that now, and she's kind of lost without it because it brought her stability for so long. And I love that Chris makes the comparison of kind of like, oh, like to kind of understand where she's coming from. He makes reference to the fact that it's him and Legos, and it's just he kind of put his kind of all into it, which she kind of laughs about, but she's like, no, that's actually a really apt, comparison between what I'm trying to say and you. But the fact of the matter is, it seems like I'm curious to see what they end up doing in that regard of kind of like, I think Chris is going to kind of bring her a little bit out of her shell, kind of make her, because it seems like she doesn't like people. It doesn't seem like she's a people person. It seems like she'd rather deal with numbers, and maybe that's what this whole project was kind of such a like, oh, I'm down for it type of situation. But we'll see. Whatever it was she was building, she was like, it couldn't connect, so it's fine. But we see the phone ringing, so she got in contact, potentially ringed up somebody. Now, what that was well, maybe it's supposed to more so represent the fact is that it means that a signal is reaching out there, whether everything got unplugged. Like, she still basically put out a big beacon, because like Chris brought up the point, because it seems like Home Dude from last episode is dead. It didn't seem like he survived that whole machine pumping him full of, I'm assuming, morphine or whatever the case may be, it was pumping him full of. So the way the conversation, I think Joe had brought it up, the fact is that he was dead, so there's that. But I'm thinking that's at least pinpointing like, oh, where they are. So that's going to be interesting, especially because it turns out this place has some memories for Chris, because this is where he grew up, and it might get a little chaotic next episode, but ultimately we'll have to wait and see. So there's all of that. We have Piper kind of like, because I don't think she really sleeps potentially, but like she's, Joe came in, checked up on her, but also removed the camera, which you see Piper turn around, which I'm wondering, is that supposed to represent like she could feel Joe's energy, knowing like, oh, she's feeling better, she's happier, because she even brought it up before. It's like, oh, you don't smile as much as you were smiling before. Or did she actually know about the camera being there, and like knowing that Joe took it was like, oh, she does believe, she trusts me, like she knew she was being watched each time. I mean, maybe she was able to kind of connect to the electronics. Maybe on some level that's how her power kind of works too. Like, one machine talking to another, kind of telling it to explode. I don't know. So that's interesting. And then at the very end, April gives the device back to Benny, because it's like, I don't want to get mixed up in this. Whatever it is, like, maybe even you should back out of it. But for him, it's like, this can be something that will change the world. He even talked about the fact is one of the main reasons why he's doing this isn't just for his stories, because he's actually going to help somebody, which even April was like, oh, you almost got me. Now I know you're lying, which is like, no, I think he is legitimate, because he's got mixed up in all of this. And I think he cares about Joe and her family, so I think that's just kind of an interesting shift in his character immediately. But on top of that, at the very end, an assassin shows up and starts shooting. So it hit the windshield, but we don't know if any of that hit April or Benny as they were backing up, crashing into another like truck or whatever. So even to the point, the assassin came out in broad daylight and did that. At least the last dude was a little sneaky to a certain extent, but this was just like I said. But I guess it's kind of like, oh, there's no connections probably to Richard Kindred, that is probably like, oh, I send a random assassin, probably like black web type of things, dark web type of thing, of things kind of potentially being handled like that. So regardless, some very, very, very interesting things went down in this episode. I'm really curious to ultimately see where all this takes us going forward, especially all this, stuff about Piper really understanding, what she is fully and who she is. Emily potentially having the answers for that, maybe, because even she's like the only one that can potentially figure it out, along with that drive or whatever that Benny had given to April. She wasn't able to kind of figure it out, but Emily was like, I can be the one to potentially figure it out. So we'll see, because whatever it is, Kindred wants it so bad, because it's what gave Emily the leverage to be like, yeah, like it's the only thing that's keeping me alive. So we'll see how all that ends up playing out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live out to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.